it seems like a young adult take on the Pokemon franchise, but in a legally distinct way. There's been a game been talked about a little bit, just teeny tiny bit. Don't know if you've heard of it. PalWorld seems to be the current craze. Who knows how long this bubble will last? Personally, I find it to be a fun game. I can sort of see where some of the controversies are coming from, but largely I don't think it's that big of an issue. But I wanted to go over a video that was not a big fan of it. I wanted to see their kind of arguments, see what's going on, see how they feel. And I'm going to be going over a video from Harmon Smith over on the YouTubes. This is him. Hey.
Over the past couple of days, I've been focusing quite a bit of time talking about PalWorld. I've been focusing on the game itself. I've been talking about the plagiarism, the obvious, blatant, we know it's plagiarism. None of this, oh, we can't know for sure crap. We know it's true.
I know it's only 16 seconds in. I do hope he really shows this stuff, because like what's the most egregious plagiarism? I've seen a lot of stuff that kind of leans towards it just seems more like inspiration, because as far as I'm aware, it was all designed by one grad student that was hired off of Twitter. So I can definitely see how those were designed by somebody that was very heavily inspired by Pokemon or the monster taming genres. So correct me if I'm wrong.
I've been talking about that for a while. I've been talking about the reception a little bit. And now that, like, I've had time to sit down a little bit and, like, look at, like, the general state of things and what people are doing, like, this is, I think, the stupidest thing the YouTube community has ever pulled. Backing an obviously plagiarized shovelware product in an attempt to downplay Pokemon. Because that really is.
I mean, a lot of people have shelled like World of Warcraft, and that was just based off of something else. That was based off Warhammer, wasn't it? That was just based off wasn't it based off of Tolkien's orcs? Like inspired by? I don't know.
Is all this is. That's all I've said. Like, PalWorld, the enthusiasm around it is all done out of this idea that this is somehow going to ruin Pokemon and Game Freak, the biggest game in the world. Oh, Game Freak should be embarrassed. That
personally, I don't think it's going to ruin them. I don't think they care that much about it. They did release the statement saying that their legal team is going to look into it and will pursue any legal avenues they see fit. So we'll have to wait and see with the actual plagiarism suit, I guess, that Poke Company is going with.
this game has 2 million players on Steam right now or whatever. You know, never mind it released at a lower price point. Never mind that the product is obviously plagiarized. Never mind it's a flavor of the month game. Never mind that, like, people are only enthusiastic about it because of the Pokemon elements, right? The stuff that...
Sort of true. A lot of people, at least for myself, I find there's definitely appeal to scratching that monster taming Pokemon vibe, but with a more, sometimes more mature, not in the fun way, setting. And sometimes it's just a bit of a change in the formula that we're all used to, what the exact same Pokemon game over and over and over and over and over. Every single time. For me, Pokemon peaked with Heart Gold, Soul Silver. There's never been a Pokemon game that's been as good to me. But that's why I kind of like PalWorld, because I still get the Pokemon vibe. They're definitely appealing to a similar audience, but they're still going their own sort of way. And I mean, they're not really doing anything necessarily groundbreaking with game design for PalWorld, but they're combining two different things in a way that hasn't really been done before. Like there was Pokemon Arceus, or however the fuck you pronounce it. I haven't played that one. It seemed neat. I haven't been able to play it because I don't have a Switch. I have a PC, and I kind of want to do monster taming, and it's cool to use a gun. So I can also definitely see why Pokemon just stepped in and like stomped down on the Pokemon mod for PalWorld, because like that I could see an argument for it's damaging the brand to literally do Pokemon with guns. On the other hand, I do kind of think that is a bit of a overreaction. It's a mod. It's not officially endorsed by the developers, Pocket Pair. In fact, Pocket Pair said, "Don't compare us to Pokemon."
That was obviously plagiarized from Pokemon. No, let's pretend that this is the biggest game of the year. We saw something similar last year with Hi-Fi Rush, where YouTubers were like gushing over this game that they obviously would not play if it was a Nintendo exclusive, right? We're kind of seeing this now with PalWorld, right? Where like a lot of these YouTubers are coming out saying, "Oh, I would still be a fan of Pokemon if they would evolve the formula and do something just a little bit different."
I consider myself a loose fan of Pokemon, and they should still do something different, because it's been the same thing every single time. They update the graphics a little bit, but fundamentally, yes, this guy did just unironically dish Hi-Fi Rush, but fundamentally the Pokemon games are the same. They didn't do anything groundbreaking by adding fairy type when they did.
And then meanwhile, like, they act like Pokemon Legends Arceus doesn't exist. They don't act like the spin-off games don't exist. They like...
The spin-off games are not the mainline games. I'm critiquing the mainline games. I like the originality of the spin-off games. I wish I could have played Arceus, but I don't have a Switch.
Essentially, what I'm saying is that it feels like the people complaining about Pokemon...
I think his argument was that people wouldn't play Hi-Fi Rush if it was a Nintendo exclusive. They would have been against it, but since it was available on all platforms, they are sucking its dick, metaphorically.
Are going to be complaining about it no matter what, right? You know, I'm an old school fan. I've been dealing with this since like Gen 2, right? You know, I grew up being told that Pokemon was only good in the first generation and that only the first 151 were like the real Pokemon and that everything after that was like fan fiction. You know, I remember seeing like people on forums writing essays on how like everything after Gen 1 wasn't like a real Pokemon. like I could probably dig it up if I really tried, but like, you know, I remember that happening, right? You know,
yeah, people are going to forget the origins of something that's multi-generational, because like it might have started with millennials, but Zoomers and Gen Alpha are growing up in a world where Pokemon has always been around. For us, Pokemon came out when we were teenagers or young, or maybe a little younger, but I remember being in a world where Pokemon was literally a brand new thing, and I saw the first movie in the theater. I wish I still had my movie exclusive card. I had that Pikachu, the fat little circle one that did like the 50 damage, but I never played the card game. I just collected them and played the games.
And it became so prominent in the community of people just attacking this brand just because it was popular. Like, how dare you still like Pokemon?
That happens with like all sorts of anything that gets popular. There is always going to be detractors. There's always going to be haters. I've been saying this for a long time. Your dad hated it? Rip. That movie made me cry as a kid. And it also has literally one of the most inspirational quotes I've ever heard in movies. If you know, you know.
People started coming up with a term for it, Gen 1ers, right? And these people and their typical behavior patterns, their attitudes, the way they went about things, like the fact that they obviously weren't actual fans and only played Pokemon back when it was popular because it was the new trendy thing, and dropped it after it stopped being the new trendy thing, right? These people.
Yes, that is how trends work. Good job.
Started being a joke in the community to the point where like they really couldn't get away with their nonsense. Nobody took them seriously. And what's been happening over the past couple of years with Gen 8 and like the Dexit thing and this and Temtem, like what I'm seeing from people like religiously pretending as if every other monster catching game in the industry is like somehow better than Pokemon, even though they aren't. Like,
oh my God, Nessie, you're reminding me of my PTSD. No, Angelamon Digivolve, or Angela Anaconda Digivolve 2, Angelamon. I fucking had the VHS where it had that on. So anytime I wanted to watch the Digimon movie at home, I had to fast forward past that part. Oh my God. I loved that movie. It was literally so good. And if you want a movie that tells similar story to children's war game, the one with Omnimon versus Diaboromon, and like the virus that takes over the internet, if you want to see that, or if you want to get that story without having without being a fan of Digimon, I highly recommend checking out the movie Summer Wars. It's basically the same thing, but with an original IP done by the exact same animator, because he really liked that, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyways, back to Pokemon with guns.
What it seems like, it's the same thing over again, right? Where people who don't play the games are complaining about them in order to gain an audience of people who want to see the games fail. It is ridiculous to me seeing how many people like just obsessively want to see these Nintendo franchises go under, right? The Act-Man, Mutahar, Raging Golden Eagle, Angry Joe, to name a few, right? Like, it's crazy seeing
I know a couple of those.
People push these insane narratives that, like, Pokemon ripped off Dragon Quest. Like, what? They don't...
It's literally the exact same thing. It's Pokemon ripped off real life, bro. Didn't you know? I really hope. God, I wish I had that meme on fingertip, actually, where it was like a picture of an actual dolphin and then a picture of that dolphin Pokemon, and then saying that Pokemon is going to sue God or something because they plagiarized their Pokemon.
don't look the same at all. Like, when you compare the PalWorld designs to Pokemon, you can
So compare them, or are you just going to keep talking?
see, like, what assets they ripped and what they applied and stuff like that. Like people are doing, like, investigation work, like, proving this, right?
So link it.
Like, we've
show
known
it.
that since the beginning. But, like, here these guys are, on Twitter, Pokemon doesn't own animals, and then they post that,
Yeah.
like, stupid Dragon Quest image where,
Or they post a picture of a Wooloo. You can't tell me that's not very different. The Wooloo is just a sheep with hair extensions on the front. It's so basic. Fucking Voltorb is just a ball. Come on, dude. Get better arguments.
posting monsters that look nothing like Pokemon. Like, yeah, they're, like, based off the same animals. But, like, if anything, it's weird that they try to do that. Because they're trying to showcase that, like, Pokemon ripped off Dragon Quest. But in reality, like, that is a good example of how different artists can make the same animal look, right? Because, Digimon looks different, Yu-Gi-Oh! Looks different, Dragon Quest looks different, Pokemon looks different, right? They all have their distinguishing art styles.
Are you going to compare or just rant about it? just rant about it. Cool.
Right? So the narrative that Mutahar came up with, that like, oh,
Mutahar, the guy famous for not showing sources.
you can only draw a wolf one way. Like, how do you know it's plagiarized? Like, it was complete nonsense, right? It was an excuse. It was a justification as to what's happening. Oh yeah, Moist Critical, the most boring man on the internet. Yeah, he, oh, how dare people criticize me for enjoying a video game. You know, a game that's obviously derivative of other properties, a game that's uninspired, a game that people won't even remember like 5 years from now, right?
You can make those criticisms towards Pokemon, or Pokemon with guns. You can make that criticism towards PalWorld, but I don't quite see the whole plagiarism spot. I see it's getting pretty close to inspiration and allusion kind of thing, rather than being like one-to-one cloning of what already exists. I think Mudhar actually did bring up a good point that there was even extreme closeness with one of the pals in PalWorld and a fan Pokemon. So you should definitely go check out Mudahar's video on the PalWorld controversies. I liked it.
Right? Like, how dare people criticize me for enjoying this obviously plagiarized project? Hey, genius. You can like bad video games, right? Like, there's nothing stopping you from, like, playing these weird knockoff properties if you want. But don't you dare come out and try to say that it's wholly original, that it's nothing like the product it's ripping off, that it deserves to exist, that it's...
Okay, so aside from the designs, what is it ripping off from Pokemon? I would argue it's not really ripping off a whole lot. You've got the capturing and the spheres, sure. But largely the gameplay is like very, very different. It's a third-person shooter. PalWorld kind of looks like an action RTS version of Pokemon, like Rust meets Baddies. Sort of. Like, you get your one pal out that actually follows you around and can fight with you, which is the reason Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver is the best Pokemon game to me, because you actually had your Pokemon with you, walking with you on that journey. And PalWorld lets you do that. You can mount them, they can just hang out, they can work with the bases and all that fun stuff. It helps build an immersive, it helps build an immersive experience when you're trying to feel a connection between, like, tamer and monster. You know, a big thing that Pokemon tries to sell to its audience, that your Pokemons are your friend. Maybe it's just a personal argument, but I think that it would really benefit the Pokemon series to at least include that feature. I kind of get why they don't, but they still fucking should.
It's like objectively a good game, right?
More of an Arc ripoff with Pokemon? Yeah, it's basically Arc if they added Pokemon and capturing. Yeah, Arc with Pokemon.
That's another aspect of this that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, is that, like, the gameplay itself isn't original either, right? It's taking elements from Fortnite and Genshin Impact and...
Pokemon is just taking elements from Final Fantasy turn-based games. What's your point, dude?
Arc Survival Instinct, right? Like, nothing about this game is original, right? In any way, shape, or form. There's no creativity. It's like, it's slop, basically, to quote...
I agree with that assessment. It is slop, and it's my kind of slop.
Oh, Vosh. And I just don't see the vast majority of YouTubers, like, talking about it. All they're doing is, like, appealing to popularity. Like, oh, look how successful this game is. Yeah, because it plagiarized the most successful brand on the planet. And you are actively working to try and get as many people on board with that as possible, right? Right now, the YouTube community is legit trying to defend plagiarism. They are legit.
How should I word this? I think there are a lot of people that are hypersensitive towards plagiarism alerts. Largely, I would say thanks to H Bomber Guy's video. That it very well done video did its job, but a lot of people are kind of like hyper attuned to searching out for plagiarism and keeping an eye out, and I just don't think that PalWorld hits that level. Hey, Demon Fox. Yeah, actually, right here. This is an excellent supplementary video, Tom Scott's Guide to Plagiarism, the Somerton Scale. I've watched it multiple times. I highly recommend people watch it. It gives a great explanation of where, or at least his explanation of where things can lie between no correlation and straight up ripping off. And for me, PalWorld tends to fall somewhat towards the middle, maybe a little closer towards the plagiarism end than no correlation. But largely, I don't think it's something that's lawsuitable. I don't think it's that big of an issue. It's very clearly not a groundbreaking game. And even the CEO is on record for being like, yeah, I like chasing trends. What's trendy? Well, Fortnite and Pokemon. Go figure. One of these games would come out, and since people want to have an original style experience with a Pokemon sort of aesthetic, no wonder it took the fuck off. It gave people something they were wanting, something at least a little different.
Legit trying to damage control the fact that this company, Pocket Pair, ripped a bunch of Pokemon models, reassembled them, and then packaged them in a completely different game.
Sources needed for that one, because like it's pretty hard to alter models and make it look as different. Like, this is hard to explain. When you alter a model, it looks very, very obviously the same, but with the PalWorld designs, I really feel like they were designed to be inspired by Pokemon, but were created as original models. Obviously, I could be wrong. I just want to be made aware of what's actual, proof of them actually stealing assets from Pokemon. At best, jury's still up. Plagiarism of assets based on evidence. Excuse me. And the assets are most compelling evidence, even though it's inconclusive. I saw what he's talking about on Twitter. Oh, okay, yeah. Thanks. I've heard of that argument, but I haven't actually seen a whole lot of comparisons aside from in the Mudahar video. So, yeah.
And are trying to pass them off as like completely original creations. Actually, they're not even doing that, because like it's clearly meant to be like one of those Chinese bootleg products. Like you know how like they would have like.
I mean, you could make an argument that it falls into parody category, like oh my god. How dare Spaceballs do this? They're clearly ripping off the Star Wars franchise. Star Wars should sue. And it's like, that's literally the vibe I'm getting of PalWorld and Pokemon. PalWorld, Pal Spheres, you've got your pals. It seems like a young adult take on the Pokemon franchise, but in a legally distinct way.
back in like the 2000s, how you would have like those.
Apparently, some of the models line up with the Pokemon models. Again, not conclusive. Yeah, I mean, I know in the Mudahar video he had shown the comparison of like Luxray and one of the pals. That one was proven false. Yeah, I mean, I thought so. I don't know 100% on the model or the asset flip stuff. I just kind of feel like it's not that the dude manipulated the model to look like that. Was it more than just scaling? Because like I don't personally care about the scaling part because it's 3D. It's so easy to scale stuff. But like I would want conclusive evidence of what's it? Of like how they were a literal one-to-one. It seems a lot of designs are close, but not necessarily proof that they've been stolen. Oh, scaling and a bit of others too. Yeah, I actually didn't know he admitted that it was manipulation either.
Those like terrible knockoff VHS animated movies of like popular films, right? Like it's a lot like that, right? Stuff that like really shouldn't exist. Stuff that exists to like take advantage of people who like may be like vaguely aware of the brand and don't necessarily know
Hey,
like what
seahorse.
the real version of it is, right? Like PalWorld, you know, the fact that like so many people are so defensive of this game is embarrassing, honestly. The fact that so many people are going to bat for it is embarrassing, and I think
I mean, you're pitching 900.
it's very it very strongly indicates the mindset that these people are in, right? That they need to keep the discussion about Nintendo properties negative. And that has been the realization I've had over the past couple of years is that
Personally, I don't want to make the only discussion about Nintendo to be negative. I mean, in my last segment, I actually praised one of the Nintendo CEOs for being based to AF. But I think it's still also very important to point out the criticism that, you know, applies to the literal rehashing of games over and over. Sure, Seahorse, what's your exclusive take?
the YouTubers are starting to ramp up like the anti-Nintendo propaganda. You know, they're not covering Nintendo products. They're writing them all off as bad. They're calling them boring. They're calling
Wait, what new Nintendo products are there? There's the Switch, but everybody already knows about that, so why would everybody they're all they're doing all of this for press? Yeah, more than likely. Like controversy really brings eyes to attention. Their next game is a shot at Hollow Knight. Yeah, and like their previous game Craftopia was also friggin' just Breath of the Wild asset flip. Like I don't see this developer lasting a very long time, even if they put captured lightning in a bottle with PalWorld. I don't think they really I don't really have high expectations that they'll be able to keep doing this over and over and over. But it's working for me for PalWorld. But as far as their other games coming out or games that they have out, none of them really I don't know. None of them really jump out to me. Pokemon with guns appealed to me. And their company name is a play on two of a kind pair. Yeah. I get that.
them uninspired. You know, like how many people tried to say they didn't care about Mario Wonder before it came out, right?
Yeah, a lot of people were saying we don't care about Mario Wonder, especially now that Mario has fucking pronouns in bio. Oh yeah, I fully agree. The CEO of Pocket Pair is a big douchebag. He's like one of them AI tech bros. I really don't like him. But at the very least, they haven't used I haven't seen evidence of generative AI being used for PalWorld, just in that other one game of theirs. But yeah, I can criticize the thing I'm engaging with, even if I like it. Not that hard to me. They hired an artist and 3D modeler that could easily be manipulated as well. Yeah, like from what I heard, it was a grad student from Twitter that ended up designing all 100 pals. So like I could see where they're coming from with they want this to be Pokemon-like, but legally distinct. The artist was turned down for over 100 jobs, and the modeler was fresh out of high school. Oh, I didn't know that about the modeler. But I did hear that the artist that designed the pals, that they were having a lot of trouble getting work. I do hope all this discussion on PalWorld helps them in the future. Both of those come with one of the Pocket Pair web pages, so I trust it 100%. Okay, yeah, well, I mean, it's their statement. We can't really prove them otherwise, so might as well go with it, right? I may not trust the dude. I may not like the dude. But unless I can prove him wrong, I'm not going to call him a liar. He's Japanese. I don't want to deal with Japanese defamation laws.
How many people tried to say that like Tears of the Kingdom was just a rehash of Breath of the Wild, right? You know, how many of them?
I mean, wasn't it? It wasn't like necessarily a rehash, but it was not a big improvement. I played Breath of the Wild, but I haven't actually played Tears of the Kingdom. But I'm gonna be completely honest. I can't tell the difference if you clip Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild. I can't tell that difference. It was the art style and some mechanics like climbing, gliding, set on top of a generic survival crafting game. Yeah. But I mean, it was fun with what it did, but aside from not having a switch between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom coming out, Tears of the Kingdom just really didn't have as big of a draw to me, because even just the trailers and stuff, like the pre-launch gameplay, it was a lot of, it looks kind of the same. I don't think I really need to play it. But it wouldn't have gotten anything without controversy. Well, and HoloLive playing it. Wait, HoloLive helped boost which? Are we talking about Legend of Zelda or Craftopia? Craftopia. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. To be honest, I hadn't even heard of Craftopia until I started hearing about the PalWorld controversies.
Them came after Fire Emblem Engage or like Advance Wars. Like there are a ton of people doing that. You know, like I'm seeing people saying that Advance Wars killed the brand, right? Like
you found it via HoloLive. Oh, okay. Yeah, it strikes me as one of those things that was like a quote unquote hidden gem where it's out there. Some people do know of it, but it's not like widely known. But now a lot more people know about it.
Like that's just such a weird thing to say, considering the brand has been stagnant since the mid 2000s. But like, oh, this remake is gonna kill it. Like, really?
Wait, was he arguing for or against Pokemon there? I've lost the plot.
Advance Wars. Like there are a ton of people doing that. You know, like I'm seeing people saying that Advance Wars killed the brand, right? Like that's just such a weird thing to say, considering the brand has been stagnant since the mid 2000s. But like, oh, this remake is gonna kill it. Like,
Bro, please. How has Pokemon refreshed or done anything new for the mainline games? They've shifted from 2D to 3D. Neat. Yay.
really, like, and again, uh, I think this is a really interesting situation because it really showcases the problems with the PC gaming community and the YouTube sphere, right? Because they're not interested in actually presenting and talking about like interesting, fun games, which are getting made all the time, getting released all the time.
I mean, you gotta go with what's trendy. Have a good time, Nessie. Thanks for stopping by. You can't evolve a game like that if you have to ship a game every year. Yeah, I agree with that. I very much agree with that. Like, it's why you don't see a whole lot of innovation with the sports games. People want, or businesses, corporations, they want to make their return on their investment, so they go with the safer bets. They go with what already has made money for them. I agree. Fucking capitalism.
They're interested in promoting slop. They're interested in promoting a bunch of brands that they themselves are the primary kind of arbiters of, right? These are the brands that like highly rely on them for marketing, and the brands that like might give them kickbacks or might like rely on them for promotions and stuff like that. Like more and more, like Nintendo is obviously not needing them, just like they don't need traditional game journalists. So they're really getting upset at Nintendo. They're really trying to come after like all of their brands and do everything possible to pretend the games aren't good, the hardware isn't good, Nintendo isn't worth supporting. You should support this.
Nintendo can take a loss for the next 10 years and still be fine. They made that much fucking money off of Super Nintendo and the NES. Like, for real. Look at the 3DS and Wii U. They bombed super duper hard. And still, Nintendo is staying afloat and then even innovating enough to turn a profit with the Switch coming out and doing well. Holy shit.
Shovelware knockoff property instead, because it's just better, okay? Like, let's ignore the fact the game isn't good. Let's ignore the fact that it's like obviously a ripoff. Let's pretend it's better than the actual thing.
I wouldn't call it better. I would say it's fulfilling a different niche that the Pokemon mainline games just don't. And people want a breath of fresh air with Pokemon, because, like it or not, Pokemon is a huge fucking franchise. And even if people have nostalgic attachment to it, current attachment to it, whatever, there's still going to be people that want that new experience with the thing they're already familiar with.
And yeah, this is very typical for them, right? They did this a lot in like the mid 2000s with like Zelda and stuff like that. How many times did we hear that like Dark Cloud was better than Zelda or something? You know,
how many times have we heard of Dark Cloud? Like, I've heard of it, I've been aware of it, but I don't hear a lot of people talk about it.
Darksiders, right? Until Breath of the Wild came out, that was like very, very typical. Like Dark Souls, right? Skyrim, right? That was very typical. That was a very typical way to dismiss Zelda, was just say that like, oh, everything else on the other consoles is better. You know, Mario got slammed for a long time. You know, like even now,
they got slammed for a long time until they actually started innovating and changing up how they approach platformers and giving players a new experience that isn't just the same thing as previously, but now in 3D with one extra type. Yay! Or now you can super evolve for one fight. then you're back to normal and do it again. Yay.
Oh, you're still seeing people try to say that like the new Super Mario Bros. Games are bad.
Agreed. Cat Mario the changed up the formula more than enough than everything else. Yeah, like unironically, didn't it change gameplay? Like you could climb up walls and stuff? Like Nintendo actually excuse me. Nintendo actually does innovate and take time to, you know, make better products over time. They don't always like they do a lot of experimentation. Not all of it sticks, but a lot of it, I mean, it pays off when they do it. Oh god, 4-player co-op was fun. I miss 4-player co-op stuff, like when you could actually do couch co-op with friends. I miss that. But now all my friends live so far away and it's like hard to make time to actually hang out in the same place to play games together. Shit's not cash.
Bad. I've been talking about that a lot. And that's a mindset that's like slowly starting to die away.
Adult happened, yeah.
Like, there's only so much you can do. You know, you can attack a brand or franchise while claiming to be a fan of it before your audience starts flipping and starts saying that, like, well, they're making real improvements here. They're actually making real changes. They're actually, like, evolving, doing better, right? Like, what's going to happen if Gen 10, like, doesn't have the same kind of issues that Gen 9 allegedly had, right? Like,
wait, what were the issues? Like, was Scarlet and Violet? I mean, the Pokemon walked around on the world map, right? But it was still all turn-based. You get 4 moves. It's essentially the same kind of stuff, but they portray it or they show it in a little way. The fundamental gameplay is largely the same, isn't it?
like what if Gen 10 comes out and is like, you know, a radical departure?
It was mostly performance issues. Fair enough. And it was still the best-selling Pokemon game so far.
From previous generations, right? Like even with Scarlet and Violet, it felt like the narrative that Pokemon wasn't evolving had kind of fallen apart, right? Like to me, it feels like at this stage that
Like with what wasn't the big drawing feature of Scarlet and Violet? Like I haven't played these. Last ones I played was Sword and Shield. But like the drawing factor for Scarlet and Violet was the motorcycle floaty Pokemon that was not only the game's bicycle, but also let you surf. So it's just kind of taking two things and making it a Pokemon. Most of the hardcore Pokemon friends that said that Scarlet and Violet was truly different, even if it was a bunch of smaller changes. It was like 4 modes of transit? Oh, interesting. I do guess that Scarlet and Violet kind of changed up some things, but I still kind of think it's like the same kind of formula of the same battle systems. You go through your 8 gyms, you do your Elite Four, you finish off the story, and that's really it. You think Scarlet and Violet is a stepping stone? I would hope so, that they start trending towards more innovative gameplay, so to speak. I would like to see them move away from the turn-based battles. I'd like to see them move towards like an actual real-time thing. But I also understand that it's like the turn-based stuff is what's known, and it's easy enough for Final Fantasy. Yeah, I'd appreciate if they pulled the Final Fantasy. But I mean, that's a personal opinion. I think there is still a market for turn-based stuff. They could look into like Super Mario World RPG to change up the formula a little bit. Legend of Dragoon stuff. A lot of people stop playing Final Fantasy because of those. Yeah, I get that. Actually, I was one of those people because I was really big into 7. I played a bit of 8, and then when I got to try out 12, I kind of fell off. I never finished that one, and then just kind of drifted away from Final Fantasy until much longer later I got into 14. And that one, I'm not going to say it's turn-based, but it's definitely not real time. It's semi-real time. It's good. It's World of Warcraft, but the bosses get more complex.
PalWorld thing is being produced by being pushed by people who don't actually play Pokemon, right? Like the issue is that it's Pokemon fans versus like people who hate Pokemon, right? Like people who are actively working to try to undermine the brand at every possible opportunity, right?
That is a narrative. It's either you're for it or hardcore against it. You can't be just somebody that kind of likes the aesthetic of Pokemon and, wants to play something that isn't turn based. They want something action timey, real timey. But, the world is black and white.
And like, I don't think this is sustainable. Like, I think in supporting this obviously plagiarized product that's not going to remain relevant for very long, I think pushing this nonsense is really going to come back to bite them. Like, I think this is going to straight up kill their credibility because they fought like tooth and nail.
I mean, they don't really have a whole lot great stuff. It's a lot of the people talking about this are not like jerking off what's it? They're not jerking off Pocket Pair. They're enjoying the game that they ended up making. I'm pretty sure most people just won't care about like Craftopia. There might be some people interested in that Hollow Knight game or whatnot, but I don't think it's going to capture the lightning in a bottle that it did with PalWorld.
To try and convince people that like, oh, Pokemon isn't original. Pokemon isn't that great. Like
Pokemon was original, and then it just really felt like the exact same thing over and over, just changing out the names and designs. That's what it feels to me.
Nintendo fans are only upset at PalWorld because Pokemon.
And people will shit on that even more since they're ripping off an indie company. Yeah, there's probably going to be a lot more backlash towards that Hollow Knight ripoff, which, like, I don't know if more is the right one. There's definitely going to be backlash. There's already backlash, I think.
Pokemon is the only thing they play. Meanwhile, like Nintendo fans are talking about like Dragon Quest monsters, Shin Megami Tensei 5. Like we have a lot of other Pokemon alternatives, right? Like if anything, Pokemon fans are like the group of people who are like pushing that stuff the most. So like the idea that people are salty at PalWorld simply for like being a Pokemon, like no, that's not the issue. Like the issue is that it's a blatant ripoff, right? That's the real problem here. I've said this several times, but I think it needs to be repeated again. If PalWorld came out on Switch, the exact same game, the exact same mechanics, exact same everything, like everybody would be making fun of it, right? Everybody would be calling it trash. But because it's a PC exclusive.
Well, it's not a PC exclusive, but no, I don't think I agree with that. I think there would be less discussion of it broadly, but I think it would still largely be the same discourse whether or not it was actually an exclusive.
Because PC gamers think they can weaponize it against Nintendo and use it to prove that the Pokemon company is out of touch and doesn't know what people want. Like, they are going to endorse it. They are going to fight religiously to keep this thing relevant for as long as they possibly can.
Thank you for that. Anyways, since he did go into like some of the plagiarism stuff, I did kind of want to take a look at a little bit of what's been said. Can I pull up some tweet threads? Let's see. Honestly, I don't think the discourse would exist. It wouldn't get enough to cause this. Yeah, I can see that. Like, I would think there would be a little bit of discourse if it was like a Nintendo exclusive, but largely I think broadly people just wouldn't care because a lot of people want to play the trending game. A Pokemon clone on a Nintendo system wouldn't blow up. Pretty much, yeah. More than likely, they would probably end up falling for their nostalgia factor, going towards back towards Pokemon, where they already knew where it's kind of hard to get attached to a brand new IP. Anyways, there's this article, the Video Games Chronicle. This publication put out an article 20th of January this year. Why buy a new Pokemon when I have Pokemon? Yeah, exactly. PalWorld embroiled in AI and Pokemon plagiarism controversy. So, right off the bat with this image, they have a similar face, but the mouth is the same and it's got yellow eyes. I can see inspiration, but it doesn't scream stolen design. That it's a pretty basic mouth that's on a lot of creatures. Okay, let's go into some of these threads. Since I'm bored as hell, I'm gonna make a thread of this, I think. PalWorld design analysis trying to spot every Pokemon they jumbled together. So this is the PAL in-game, and immediately what jumps to me is this is what taking inspiration looks like. Because, like, it's not directly ripped assets. You could definitely say it's creatively boring because of how close it can represent some Pokemon designs. But largely, I don't think it's lawsuit worthy. I'm also not a lawmancer, so grain of salt. I'm just giving my opinions. I can't speak for the courts, because if this is actually going to be being investigated by the Pokemon Company, I'm going to let them handle it. They're going to determine whether or not they consider it plagiarism. Until then, I'm just kind of thinking that they were obviously enjoyers of Pokemon to some extent or another. And if I'm not correct, there was actually even a point where, or if I'm not mistaken, there was a point where even the CEO was at like a Nintendo Pokemon event and was talking about something similar. I can't remember exactly what he was talking about. This one I kind of see. I wish the picture was better for this one, but they are fairly similar. Still, it's a lot of not one-to-one rips. Okay, this one's a lot closer. This is what I haven't actually seen. But yeah, this one you could say is a lot more morally or creatively bankrupt, I guess. Oh, that's a fan-made Mega Delphox design. And they were like, yeah, we're going to use that design. And then change it a little. So I think there could be an argument for some of these designs, but like with Anubis here, first of all, I wish they had a bigger picture. But second of all, these were both based off of the Egyptian god. The Anubis in PalWorld just plays a little bit more into the Egyptian god thing. I'm not seeing a whole lot of rounder hips. They've got the same number of feathers because they don't want to animate 1,000,000 feathers, which is understandable. Oh, and then here's some pictures of Craft World. That is literally just an asset flip. I don't know if literally, but like that looks like that model I don't recognize. Looks kind of cool though. Oh yeah, and it isn't literally, not literally, but it does kind of, yeah, it's the same as PalWorld. Copy the vibe and style. But it's not like literally a stolen asset. It's just a very, very, very inspired design, which I can understand. And then here's AI art imposter. I can't remember exactly how they use generative AI in this game, but apparently like a big part of the game is trying to suss out generative AI among the other players or something. But when they did announce this, they were, very, very open about it being made with AI. And so it would stand to reason that if there was use of like generative AI for the designs, I'm willing to bet an AI tech bro would have bragged about that. Like, for real. Yeah, it was used to generate an AI picture to find as the bad egg or whatever. Yeah, that was the kind of thing that I think I had heard of, but I never played it. I've never really looked into it. But yeah, there's a lot of people calling out a lot of different things. Is this even comparing? People told me that there are hundreds of original designs. Not everyone is a blatant copy of a Pokemon. Guess what? I've seen the rest, and with no surprise, 90% of them are definitely a copy of existing Pokemon. Some of them literally having models of, or parts of their models. Superior's model. Man, this is like spoilers to me because I haven't seen all these model designs yet. This looks pretty sick. But unfortunately for this person, I don't know my new gen Pokemon enough to really know what he's referencing. Like, they're saying Giratina's face, but I'm thinking more of, hey, you just did a Scorpy right here, dude. You made a Scorpion Pokemon. How dare you? Garchomp's model. Man, the more I look into it, it feels like oh, I had that open twice. Don't worry, we'll get to Asmongold's take. But yeah, that's a lot of my thoughts regarding PalWorld, I guess. Thanks for watching. Like it if you like it, dislike if you didn't. Let me know in the comments why you think I'm wrong. Check out the community on Discord. And remember, if you can't be the sharpest tool in the shed, you can always be the hoe. Just want to take a quick second and thank my beeps who have joined the channel. So thank you to Joestar and Maxi Kitty.